Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Lili Thomas, and welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals.
Hey everyone, welcome to an all-new episode of the Theater Podcast. I'm Alan Seals, and this is intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. Our guest today is Lili Thomas, who is making her Broadway debut as Mama Morton, the first Asian American to ever play the role. And not only is she making history for the show, she's making history for herself. And it's all becoming full circle because Chicago was the show that she was listening to as a child that got her into loving musical theater. And then to make her Broadway debut in the show that got her into theater and make history at the same time. It's just this perfect storm of amazing, awesome sauce. So there you go. Something super fun that she mentions is because the show is such a machine, it's been running for so long, and now with Phantom having closed, it is the longest running show on Broadway right now. It's a machine that cycles people through all the time on purpose as casts are changing. And she was saying that she met some of her castmates for the first time while on stage for her first show. Kind of insane, but just a testament to how good these people are. So I'll let her tell this story. Before we get into it, find me on the socials and connect with me. Leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. And now I hope you enjoy this episode with Lili Thomas.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Our guest today, most recently, just ended her leg of the Dear Evan Hansen First National Tour, playing the role of Cynthia Murphy. Before that, she appeared in Dave Malloy's pre-Broadway run of Octet and has other off-Broadway credits, including We're Gonna Die, The Hello Girls, and Only Human. She is now making history in her Broadway debut, being the first Asian American to play the role of Mama Morton in Chicago on Broadway. Not Broadway in Chicago. I don't know. Lili Thomas, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, I think I can't remember, one of the very, very, very first shows I ever saw as a little lad. My mom took my brother and me to see Chicago in, I want to say Toronto, but then we also saw something in Chicago that I get it all confused. I can't remember if I saw Chicago in Toronto or a show called Toronto in Chicago.
You know, there are so many casts. There have been so many casts of Chicago. They've mounted the show like all around the world. So the chances are that you saw it somewhere.
Oh, it's been going on forever. And
yes.
I guess that's actually probably, well, okay, no, I was going to say it's a great place to start, but no, I don't want to start there because we're going to get into that. So this is actually, our conversation right now is actually like conversation part 2, because I had the very, very fortunate pleasure of interviewing you already back in February when you were still doing Dear Evan Hansen the tour, because it was on my other podcast, Was It Chance, with my wonderful co-host Heather Vickery.
Love her.
For those listening now, Was It Chance is the name of the podcast, episode 34, released February 28th, 2023. So go back and get even more Lili, because it's
I'll try not to repeat myself.
Well, I was listening to the other episode to prepare for this one, and I was like, there's so much we could like cover again and dive into. But just real quick, I know we already went into this in the other episode, but just for the listeners here who haven't heard the other one yet, let's real quick give us the abridged summary of growing up with your two very successful musician parents.
Yeah, well, it's actually 4 because they divorced when I was young and remarried other musicians. So I have 4 musician parents. No, and it's funny because I said this, but it's sort of like musical theater was the big rebellion because they're classical musicians, you know? So like this was as wild as I could get with like still staying in the world. I guess rock and roll, I could have gone that route, but you know, they wouldn't let me listen to it enough for me to have enough inspiration. No, but my mother's a pianist. My father's a cellist. My stepmother is a violist. She's the principal violist of the New York Philharmonic. And my stepfather is a renowned French horn player. We had a lot of music in the house, and they are just insanely supportive. My youngest sister is also a cellist who actually, just after I did the podcast with you guys in February, ended up joining us on the tour.
Really?
Yes, as our cellist for Dear Evan Hansen, because we were losing our cellist. I said, oh, wait, I know one. And she had been on tour with Waitress, so she knew she knew what she was doing. And it was so amazing to have my sister come join me. She's also a musical theater composer. So we've got a lot of music in the family.
That's cool. That is very cool. And it was interesting because you said like your mom, I think it was your biological mom, grew up, came over to the U.S. when she was 15 on like this massive scholarship and everything. And like her never learned to ride a bike because that would jeopardize breaking
her fingers. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, she also was here by herself. And it was sort of like at that age to be given the special permission to leave a country, which at the time you really did have to have special permission to do. She was just a diligent student. I mean, every extra hour that she had was spent practicing, and they would drive her. She went to a boarding school in Connecticut. They would drive her personally into the city every weekend to go to Juilliard Prep.
Wow.
She only applied to Juilliard, did her bachelor's there and her master's, and she just sort of, there were moments when I was growing up where she said, oh, well, I never did that, so we have the cross-cultural element there, but also this element of extreme discipline sort of just ingrained in her.
Was it hard for you? And I'm taking this question I'm going to jump around. I'm taking this question from this wonderful feature of you in Playbill, right? So I'm looking at the Chicago Playbill. Yeah. And you've got this whole full page thing with questions and stuff, because one of the questions you were asked was like, tell me about a job opportunity you really wanted and didn't get. And I'll let you go into the details of it. But to summarize, it was like, basically it was based on just looks, things you can't practice, things you can't control to an extent, right? Mm-hmm. That prevented you from getting what you really wanted. And coming from this, so I want to talk about that for a second, but then relating it to your mom and your parents who were just like, they could practice all this waking time, was like perfecting a skill to be judged and prevented to get what you want based on something that is completely unrelated to a skill. How did that sort of work into your psyche and shape where you were going?
That was really difficult, I think, because, I don't think I was so much taught to work hard as I just saw it exemplified, in my parents. And it was just sort of to feel at the end of a road where there was nothing that you could do, because it's always just like, well, work harder, well, make more connections, well, do these things. And it also came at a time where I was having a lot of difficulty, or maybe not difficulty, but it was a new time for me in terms of coming to some sort of understanding of my racial identity. And I think that being at this crossroads or crossroaded dead end, I guess, if we're going to go with that analogy, to feel like my appearance and my looks and my race and my identification in a way was a part of this dead end, when I had just known the world to be like, well, if you work hard, you can make anything happen. It was a very complicated thing to deal with at such a young age, and really started a much needed journey of sort of self-racial exploration, if you will. And not all of those dead ends or those no's came with something to do with race. Some of them were body issues, or some of them were, I've always had a little bit of a older air. And I think based on the past few parts, it's safe to say it's still there. But, I think being younger and not really being an ingenue type and being more of a older, mature type was also something that I wasn't anticipating. So lots of like different ways, things that happened that made me look at myself and say, okay, wait a minute. So what am I appearing like from the outside? And that is, a place that's sort of uncomfortable for anybody to live.
Did you talk about that with your parents at all, or with your mom specifically?
No, I didn't.
Because I feel like she would come, I guess, coming to America, and what was this? This was in the
the 70s, yeah.
Right, coming to America in the 70s as an Asian, a 15-year-old Asian girl.
Yes.
There had to have been so much stigma and issues that she had to deal with.
Of course.
Right?
And, I think that it's this interesting thing that I've talked to some other people that I know whose parents are, who people like me who are first generation, whose parents or one parent is somebody who came here from another country. There, especially during that time, there was this like extreme desire to Americanize, and so I think that there was also subconsciously a little bit of a neglect for the culture that she came from. And I'm sure also, coming over here to be a classical musician, that's the stigma right there too, So like living in that, I think that she came here, she married a white man, and she wanted to be American. She wanted to soak up everything and every opportunity. She did not go back. She did not want to go back. She's one of five. All her other siblings are over there. Her family's still there. She actually just got back from Korea today. And, but there was, I think in terms of the life she wanted to build for herself, she really wanted to embrace being American and take advantage of this opportunity. And in doing so, subconsciously let go of maybe passing down those traditions and relating to identifying as a Korean woman. So, I mean, it was really hard for me to put into words, to be honest, until I read this book, Crying in H Mart. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's this unbelievable book that is being turned into a major motion picture. I read this book and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this girl who grew up in Oregon, who has a Korean mother from Korea and a white father from America, is explaining exactly what my childhood was like. I don't speak English. I kind of understand these words. I don't necessarily know how to translate them, but I understand what they mean. And it happens to like, I need subtitles to watch a Korean show on Netflix, but there are many times where I'll look at the subtitles, I say, oh, that's not what that means. That's not really what that means. I don't know what the right words would be, but it's like, there are certain things that I notice now, oh, I think I'm a little more Korean than I gave myself credit for being, just, by absorbing things. But my mother, there wasn't much conversation at home about identifying as a mixed race kid or a Korean girl. I think I grew up thinking I was white until I was maybe like 16,
Wow. Wait. So what region did you grow up in?
I grew up in New York.
Yeah, so I guess around here you sort of had the melting potness of this area, right?
There wasn't so much of like, oh, I look different, because there were a lot of, I don't know, really. Also, this is like the 90s. We didn't really talk about it so much,
No.
The conversations my kids are having at school now, I'm just fascinated by how aware they are.
Oh, absolutely. And it's completely normal and commonplace too. My kids too. They're in kindergarten. There's affinity groups now for they're encouraging kindergarten, first, second graders to be like, if you want to be the opposite sex from what you were assigned at birth, go for it. We support you.
Right.
Like, all these conversations that would blow my mind to have when I was that age.
And even like in high school would have blown my mind to have, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of the times, and also, having a mother who really embraced her transition into becoming an American.
Do you talk to your kids about race and being partially Asian and stuff?
We do. And also, especially because they're a quarter Korean.
Yeah.
But I have, I think in my older age, embraced a lot of my sort of identity as a Korean woman at home in terms of cooking and in terms of the way that we, treat our environment. And so I think that my kids identify more as Korean than I did at their age. But the interesting issue that we've run into is that they have to explain how and why they're Korean because they look so white. It's just like this opposite issue that they come home with where, Annabelle, my daughter, was told, oh, but like, this question was for an Asian kid. And she said, well, I'm Asian. And some kid told her basically that she wasn't Asian enough to be considered Asian. And that was the big heart hurt of the day. And I just thought, wow, this is really amazing how this coin has flipped.
Weird.
Yeah.
And actually very, I guess, apropos to talk about, that situation we were talking about a little while ago about, you not getting the roles when you're at this pivotal crossroads in your life too, because you were saying in this Playbill article that you were down to three different callbacks for 3 different Broadway shows, all of which for one reason, because you were either like you weren't thin enough, or you weren't Asian enough, or you weren't something enough.
Right.
And so that's career, right? That's actually life-changing. I guess I'm not saying that words aren't life-changing. Of course they are. But your daughter not being able to answer a question is a little bit less, I guess.
Of course.
Less high stakes.
The stakes are a little different. Middle school, Broadway.
But yeah, so do you talk to her then about that? You're like, look, listen, this is what you're going to have to go through probably your whole life, just because this is the world we're in?
I don't know if I don't believe that I've told my kids that story, because I think that the industry is different now. I really would like to believe that is something that they won't face.
I hope so.
And I have to say that I'm seeing it in casting. I'm seeing this, a lot of people call this a shift. And I sort of like to think of it as like a breaking down of walls. And I'm seeing the proof in the pudding. So how long that's going to stick around? Is it going to grow? Is it going to dissipate? I don't know. But I just feel really lucky to be around for it and to be a part of it. And especially as someone, I just got off of Dear Evan Hansen with a lot of younger actors. And this is the world that they're coming into. They haven't faced, the decade of suppression that I feel like I faced. And so there's part of me that's sort of like, oh, they had no idea how bad it was. But there's also part of me that's like, wow, I'm so lucky that I experienced both, so I can really appreciate what's happening now. This thing, getting cast in this role in particular, means so much more to me because of the way that I was limited beforehand.
I absolutely agree with that too, and I think it's sort of a double-edged sword, is that you have this generation now, the criticism of this generation come, these young people that are like, they go into the world and expect everything to be handed to them. Which is bad in one sense, good in another, in that they don't hold themselves back based on things like how they look. They're just like, all right, give it to me now. This is what I want. And I think again, double-edged sword.
Yes.
Take it for what it's worth. Everyone needs to work hard. Okay.
Yeah.
Have a good work ethic, but no, don't let your appearance hold you back, because
don't judge yourself. There are enough people in this industry judging you. So sometimes I look at these younger performers and I just admire them so much for their sense of self and their identity. Man, I had none of that, because I was just like, oh my God, what can I do to get you to like me or see me? Whereas, they're here and they're like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. It's amazing.
Yeah, the kids right now, they're just like, this is who I am. This is great. I'm going to go out there.
Because there's a place for everybody right now, and the communities that have come out to support everybody and every choice you're going to make. It's sort of like, oh, it makes me wonder, like, what kind of gut instinct would I have gone with about myself at one point if I felt like somebody else saw me?
Yeah, well, exactly. And now the kids, and like, you're gonna get to a point where you're a coach and you're a teacher too, so you're gonna start making, I mean, if you haven't already been, like, making casting choices that are colorblind and gender, what's the word? Not gender blind. Is that a phrase? What am I looking for? Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just irrelevant. Like, why can't some of the founding fathers be women? I would love to see that.
Totally.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
But Chicago, I want to go back to Chicago, because I remember you saying in our other interview that it was it's the show that you fell in love with that made you want to do Broadway. Yes?
Yeah.
So this is all full circle now
It's
that you're
very full
making
circle.
your Broadway debut and your first love of Broadway?
You know, I had a cousin who called me when I got the job, and he was like, wait a minute, Lil, like that show that you made us listen to all summer, the summer of, like 97, the whole summer that you did Cell Block Tango in the living room every day. And he's like, that show you're going to be in? I'm such a Candor and Ebb girl. I love Candor and Ebb. I love Fosse. I used to dance a lot, and Fosse was always just fascinating to me. And Damn Yankees was actually the first Broadway show I ever saw. And I just sort of fell in love with that traditional, and it's so vaudevillian too, which like is such a great introduction to theater. I just loved everything about it. These like murderous broads, these no limits, no rules women. I'm sure like subconsciously there was something there of like these women who don't even need their men, that they kill them. Like I just I loved it. And when I got this call, when I got the submission request, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't think they have the right person. I did ask my agent. I was like, was this for me actually? Because especially Mama Morton, I was like, oh, I don't think that you want me for that. And I just have been having so much fun with her. And especially when my agent said, no, this is accurate. And like, don't try to be anybody else or what you've seen before. And just kind of like say, what would Lili do with it? And to have that kind of freedom with such a iconic character and such an iconic show, which also like, I'd been listening to the music for years and have heard a million different renditions of. So I sort of had to like wipe it all from my memory drive and think to myself, okay, what are like just at the base, what are these qualities in this character and how does that align with me? And that was fun. That was the fun part.
Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back. Well, okay, dive into that then, because obviously Mama Morton's got some questionable values. But obviously I would say she cares very much about her and her renters, her tenants.
Her chickies.
Chickies, yeah. Like, where did you find the common ground with somebody who, again, has questionable moral values, but seems to be like they think they're doing
listen,
the right
everybody in this show has questionable moral values. So we kind of have to like put that at the baseline of everything and say, okay, from there, where did these characters live? And to go back to the Asian woman, stigma that we were talking about, there is something about being the first Asian woman to play this part in particular that was really fun for me. And that is that most leading characters that have been either written as Asian or open to being cast as Asian have sort of fallen a little bit more in line with the Asian female stigma in theater, which is more of an ingenue, more polite, more demure, a little more soft-spoken. And, I never really felt like I fell in that. I remember years and years ago, maybe it was the revival of Anything Goes with Sutton Foster. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself, oh God, I'd love to play that role. I just graduated college, I was just like a little dreamer. But I did go in for Hope. And I thought to myself, well, that's not me at all. Why would they call me in for Hope? And I think that's just a great example of like the type of character that was starting to open up to Asian American actors that didn't feel so like in line with the kind of performer I am. Mama Morton is brassy. She's sassy. She's got this like really lower growly, well, my version at least, really lower growly, deep voice. She's in charge. She's assertive. She's all these things that kind of play a little bit against that stereotype that we're more used to seeing.
Yeah.
And that was just to be given that permission to like lean into my ethnicity and my heritage in combination with those characteristics. I just felt like that was the first time that I was really handed that on a platter and told to play and told to go for it. with that combination. And has just been so much fun and continues to be fun as I explore the character.
I actually really, really enjoy that. And I think it's very cool that, you're kind of given free rein to bring yourself to it without playing a stereotype. Like you're playing the character. The character is strong. The character is brash.
Both.
Brass? Yeah.
Brassy brash.
Yes, but the character is a tuba. No. No, it's a very strong character. And even to like the women of the cell block, there's no the choreography, the storyline, even the lyrics, like there's nothing that requires any race out of anybody. There's the Hungarian for because you need the accent, which Christine Corder-Smith is not Hungarian whatsoever. But her Hungarian accent is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that requires a certain ethnic spin, but everything else in the show could be, just look at Arlo, right? Like,
yeah,
everything is not as it seems, and that's by design. I think you're right. This show has lasted forever because it speaks to a lot of people on a lot of levels and gives you representation in a way that maybe you're not consciously perceiving because the story doesn't require any particular type of person.
Well, which is also why this sort of unique casting style of Chicago, where people are in and they're out and they're changing, and like you go see two shows, you will most likely not see the same same cast twice.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've done the show really so much with the same cast twice since I've been there. The covers are unbelievable. And everybody is encouraged to bring themselves to these characters, which is why every time that you have when you have a celebrity come in, it's like these actors can come in and say, okay, this is the skeleton of what I'm going to do. But like all of the extra stuff is unique to every different person. And it is so encouraged. And I love that about this show, and think that it is a huge reason why it's lasted so long, because it's ever changing. It doesn't even have the opportunity to get stale because there's some new quality brought to each character every time somebody comes in.
When did this revival open? It was 97, I think?
97 at Encores and transferred. And it is the longest running revival in history.
Well, now that Phantom closed, it's the longest running show
currently on Broadway.
Yeah. How does the translation work? I guess, communicating the same thing over and over and over again is a game of telephone, but now like Bob Fosse obviously is no longer with us. You don't get to get, a put in with the original director. So when
or a put in period, but yeah.
Wait, really? They're just like, all right, go and action, go.
It is, you know what? It's such a well-oiled machine. They really know how to put people in and out of the show. But you rehearse by yourself with the stage manager and the dance captain.
Okay.
And then you get to your opening night, and like 45 minutes before rehearsal, you run through your scenes with the few people you interact with, and that's it.
What?
So like my opening night, I'm sitting on stage watching, We Both Reach for the Gun, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh crap, I gotta actually be present. But like, you don't see any of that move around with that amount. You don't move around with those bodies on stage. It's incredible. I mean, it is a whirlwind. But yeah, that opening night, your first performance is a first of many.
Do you remember? I mean, I guess you remember your opening night, right? I mean, you have to. But that opening night where you're getting to watch the show, because everyone's basically on stage, on the sides of the stage the entire show in the chairs. So you're getting to watch these other people that I didn't realize you hadn't previously seen.
I hadn't even met half of them, like I'm on stage with them. I was like, hi, what's your name?
Really?
Yeah.
This is wow. I had no clue. Okay, so you're on stage, you're watching the show that was the reason you got into Broadway as you're on stage making your Broadway debut. Did any of this click in the moment?
Oh, completely. It clicked and just knocked me out. I think I do remember it as a full event, but I also had so many people there, and I was like, I can't believe you're watching this show. This is like just me trying to get my shoes on here. But it was just so exhilarating. Everybody was so supportive. and the ensemble especially has done this so many times.
Yeah.
Because the ensemble doesn't change as frequently as the principals do. And so, a little hand on the back to help you get in the right place, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Everybody is amazing. And there was a little bit of Lili. And, I have to say, every night when I watch Charlotte do Roxy, there is like a full Lili Thomas geeking out over what I am witnessing that close. She is incredible. It's like a masterclass every night. So, of course I stay in character, but I just enjoy watching the show. It's so good, and just to be able to put all of this experience with like all of this history of love for the show together has been, just you can't make that up. You can't buy that.
That's really cool that it's all come together, and you're right, being able to watch someone like Charlotte that close up, right? And I think it's kind of cool when people get to watch others, like when you're staged in a way where you are literally just sitting and watching, and you have to like sit there and watch in character, but there's still like, you can sort of take the wall down a little bit as Lili.
It's sort of like a half character because it's kind of like this troupe kind of Pippin-y idea, where you're all up there just sort of like giving that focus, but you're not in the scene.
Yeah. And it's cool because everyone's like, I guess you're given the blocking to either, like in this scene, there's specifically you're paying attention or you're ignoring them, right? Because
like in Amos's in Cellophane, we're all instructed to turn away, so that nobody has noticed him.
Yeah, and
even the people on stage.
I was noticing that. It was like everybody just turned away. I was just like, looking down and doing not paying attention to Amos.
Right. That's when I introduced myself to people on opening night.
Really? You reach every night.
I turn.
Hey, we're on stage. I'm Lili.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's cool. Real quick too, I wanna shout out my love for Terrence Mann as well.
Incredible.
Charlotte's husband. The two of them together are such this power couple. And
really,
I'm in love with Foundation right now on Apple TV.
Apple TV. I really have to watch it. It's hard to like have enough energy to watch a whole episode of something when I get home, but I've got to watch it because I hear it's amazing.
It is. It's good. And Terrence, of course, is awesome.
Of course.
But yeah, that's so cool. So the way that the casts rotate through, I guess the leads rotate through, and are you sort of in favor of this now? Because, well, I don't know what I'm trying to go for, because when tourists come, like tourists are the ones who really keep musicals going, I think, because local New Yorkers are going to see a musical once, but they see every play because they're local and they can, and plays are limited runs.
Yeah.
But musicals, in theory, you want to run forever. And because of the cast album, people come with an idea of what the character should sound like and who they should be, right? And so for something like Chicago that has had so many iterations and been going for so long, are you finding that people are, there's two parts of this question. First one is, are you finding that people are expecting something different based on their preconceived expectations and maybe even the movie? And then the other part was what I was getting to originally was like the fact that shows like Into the Woods in Chicago and things are doing this like sort of leads rotation on a more frequent basis. Do you think that's a good thing?
I think that it depends. I think that with a musical that's been around for so long, that aspect of refreshing it and reinventing it and keeping it new is a good idea, because it keeps the whole piece fresh. I mean, anything staying stagnant will get stale at some point. And so I think that it's fun. I also, what I was saying about being able to sort of like add layers to the characters depending on who's come in. And I'm sure there's subconsciously things that I've seen from previous Mama Mortons that are just ingrained into my brain of a characteristic that really is in the play somewhere that I probably can't find in the script, So I think it's this thing of like continuously having these opportunities to add to these characters and to the art that's really fun. I think that it's but that doesn't necessarily apply to like a new show. I think a new show coming in, having that 1 year contract and having that whole year to really like develop what the piece is. Chicago had that. And these pieces that have constantly revived, why are they revived? Like what are we doing that's new? What are we saying with the material that's new? That's why you revive something, right? Just to make a point and to say something important. So it does sometimes take those fresh eyes on something. And in that case, I'm absolutely in support of it, to continuously collaborate on a piece with different people and explore every little crevice of the piece. Like, that's like, gold for an actor. We love that.
Sure. Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back. I guess, well, as an actor, though, as a professional who's doing this to earn a living, the year-long contract obviously would probably give you much better peace of mind than a 4-month or a 6-month contract or whatnot. And so
right.
How does the business side of this play out?
Well, it's like, and I think that this also goes into, my whole journey to where I've been, because I am a mom and I'm a single mom. It's like, okay, I got to work. And yes, so I would love to do this project and it's heading to Broadway and it's this, and that. But like, I got to take this other job, or even like, I got to go take this regional job because it pays what I need to make. And I can't make nothing in the reading workshop situation right now because that's not an option for me. So those are some of the limitations that like I personally just feel as a single mom. But like we all love a steady paycheck. Balancing your job as a Broadway performer, I think, is really hard when it's also like you just have to be a smart parent and say, well, what does my family need right now? Those are two different things. Some people have the luxury of not having to like, Venn diagram those two things and to just do what they love. And some people are in the complete opposite place where it's like, nope, I'm not even going to do theater because I'm just going to do commercials and I'm going to do this, and that because that is what my career is now. And it's just different for everybody. I think that I fall somewhere in between. But like everything comes with the balancing act of saying, does this work for me as a job, not like an opportunity or this amazing,
right.
Luckily, New York things for me. That's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. I don't like leaving my kids. We talked the last time I was on tour and I was like, I haven't seen them in months.
Yeah, legitimately a year-long tour.
You have 13 months,
yeah.
A little over a year.
Yeah, where you have, your kids are not like 18 where they can just be on their own. They still need supervision.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So then, working all of that into that, working childcare, what kind of hours here? It's a complicated puzzle. But something like this also, it's just like, I didn't care how long the contract was. My answer was going to be yes. Like this, there were so many reasons why this was such an amazing opportunity for me, particularly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were saying when you were when you were younger that people like treated you as older, right? And you didn't have that, I guess, ingenue spirit, that ingenue energy of being like the bubbly, right? That I would cast as like we're going again stereotypical tropey ingenue,
right?
But now, are you coming off of 13 months as Connor's mom? And now Mama Morton is a matronly figure. You're taking care of your cell block, right?
Yeah.
And so is this something that you enjoy getting into now?
Of course. Yeah. I love it. But I have to say I had this agent when I was in my, I guess, like younger to mid 20s who I had, kept missing out on a couple things and I was just kind of bummed. And then I got pregnant when I was 26 and I was so afraid of telling my agent. And I told her and she said, "Oh, great. That's great. That's perfect timing." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh, honey, like I'm here for the long run with you. I'm here to see what you're going to do in your 30s and your 40s."
Wow.
Like, so she said, "If you want another one, do it right away. Get it out of the way. And then you can actually have the career that probably people in this industry see you having." I didn't quite understand that at that age. And I think I'm experiencing exactly what she was talking about. I kind of I guess I took her advice. But yeah, because Jack is 2 years younger than Annabelle, and that's sort of what I did with my 20s. I became a mom, and I started my family and laid this foundation. And I think that I'm now able to use so much of my experience as a mom in these roles that I'm being cast in. And I think to myself, oh, so that's where I was supposed to be going, you know? I love these roles. I loved being Cynthia. And I thought she gets kind of a bad rap in that show, but I really just found so much in the character, and especially being away from the kids, you know, and playing a mom of a girl and a boy. Just so much to relate to. And on here, you know, Mama Morton doesn't have kids, but she does run a tight ship. And that's what I do at home, you know? And it's like, she's got to be on it. She's got to, even if she doesn't know what she's doing, she has to appear like she does. She has to diffuse situations. It's just like, you know, 7 a.m. getting ready for school.
Yeah, I mean, questionable moral values of Mama Morton, but still, like, she wants everything to run, and she wants her girls to be taken care of.
Yep. And we all, listen, as parents too, we all are put in those positions where we have to make a decision. Sometimes we make the wrong one, and you got to stand by it.
Oftentimes we make the wrong. Like, yep, nope, I said the wrong thing, but don't second guess me now, children.
Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. Yeah, but you said, I know what I said. No, I'm saying it differently. Get over it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My kids, I think we were talking about this after the show the other night. Yeah, my kids are second and third grade now, and especially my third grader is just like, Dad, what you said doesn't make sense to me, because logically, like, it's not going to be beneficial for all of us. I'm like, what? God. Where are you coming from, man?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The things that they must tell each other at school that we said, they all cross-reference, and then they call out the ones who are faking it, you know?
Yeah. Well, then my younger one, he's just like, he's second grade, very young. I think he's the youngest one in his class too. So, which is a big deal in second grade. And his mentality is I got hit in the balls. So,
oh my God.
So that's the difference. They're 20 months apart, but it's a big 20 months in second and third grade right now. Okay, let's transition into 3 closing questions I like to ask on my little solo pod here that I ask everybody. The first one, very simply, is just what motivates you?
Oh, like, I don't really need to come up with much, because I just such a musical theater nerd. I love it. I love everything about it. I always have. I can fall in love with any piece, which is, you know, obviously a double-edged sword. But I just love going into, like, if I'm reading a new script or something, just visualizing everything, looking at all the material and saying, like, where can you go with this? It's just like what I was saying before. It's just like the gold. And I don't know what motivates me like this. It all motivates me. Just like being material. Material motivates me. I love getting my hands on new material. Even if it's just a side for an audition. It's like, it just piques my interest. I'm always so curious about it. How did somebody come up with this? And who came up with it? Who collaborated? And, you know, I love, like, just looking at the whole creative team and then looking at the material and, like, hypothesizing how it all came to be. It's just, I used to, I love casting. I love, like, in the end, looking at who people chose for what and thinking why. I used to sit in like my 6th grade French class, completely spaced out, and, like, would choose a show and write down all of the characters in the show, and then try to cast the show from who was in class with me. That was like my version of misbehaving. That's what I did in class when I was checking out. But yeah, new material. It's always so fun to see.
So the teacher intercepts the note you're trying to pass to your friend, and they're like, "What is this? We're going to read it out loud." Timmy is
Bye Birdie.
Birdie Dreamcast. What?
Yeah, that was for sure.
That's
I love it.
Funny. Yep, I get it, because I didn't Dreamcast, but I would dream sing. I was zoning out. Yeah,
I love that.
Okay, the next question: what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
You know, I think that was also a question in that Playbill article. I don't know if it made it into that edited version, but let yourself be you. And because I feel like I was always trying to fit myself into a box that already existed, and I'm experiencing something I never thought I would experience, which is the permission and the encouragement to create my own box. And I wish that I sort of knew that that's where I was going to end up earlier. I wish I knew that earlier so that I could have maybe explored a little bit of like who I was rather than trying to be something all the time. So I'm seeing that in a lot of younger kids today, and I'm really happy to see that in my students and in the younger performers that I get to work with. And yeah, that's when I get a little jealous. I'm like, oh, I wish I was that age now so that I was a little more encouraged to be myself.
I think you'd make a really good Mary Jane Healy in Jagged.
Ooh, thank you. I
Yeah.
did.
Oh gosh, I mean Elizabeth Stanley, phenomenal. I can see.
Amazing.
I can see you doing that really easily.
And Heidi, I would love to see her version.
I saw
of
Heidi
it,
too. Yeah, I saw it twice.
You
I
did?
saw them both.
I would have loved to see her.
Yeah, they were both just phenomenal. But yeah, you could nail that. You would nail that.
Great character. Well, like that kind of thing. I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, like, all the things about that character that aren't in the script, you know, and I just start coming. That's the stuff that is, yeah.
Right.
What a great character. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Last question.
Somebody listening, cast me.
Last question then. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you say?
Oh, God. Does it have to be currently running right now?
No, any show.
Oh, that's a really hard question.
I only ask the hard-hitting questions here.
I know. You know, I'll say that, like, you know, we all as kids had those shows that changed. You know, Chicago was one of them. But those movie musicals, before I started seeing live theater, I was really, really obsessed with the movie musicals. And the one that I watched all the time too, that I kind of have come back to and I'm listening to a lot now, is Music Man. I love Music Man. And I didn't see this last version because, you know, I was on tour. I just think that, like, you know, I know it won the Tony the year that it came out. And I keep thinking to myself, like, what that must have been like to have a musical come out like that at that time. Sort of like Hamilton, you know? I mean, it's like this industry changing musical, and there's so good in so many ways, and so many opportunities to like keep reinventing it. So I don't know. That one's just kind of at the forefront of my mind today. But I could think of probably 10 more.
It's funny you say that. When I was a kid too, the VHS tapes I watched over and over again were West Side Story, Singing in the Rain, and Music Man.
Yeah. Mine were West Side Story, Music Man, and Sound of Music.
Yeah. I never got into Sound of Music.
That was like, I was really young, but I usually only watched VHS 1. It was a double VHS, you know?
Right, it's a long one.
It's a long one, and the second act has like the wedding and the Nazis and things that like a 3-year-old maybe doesn't think are the most interesting things in the world.
To that point, real quick, I want to go back to Chicago for a second because you love Chicago as a kid, but that's not very appropriate for a kid.
No, but I was in 7th grade. So like
you're starting to explore that side.
Yeah, that was a little bit of like, ooh, like when we all got our hands on Rent, and it was like, oh, I don't want my mom to really hear what I'm listening to. It's just a musical. Like, but it was, you know, I definitely knew I was listening to something I probably shouldn't be listening to. Maybe that was part of the fun.
I love that. That's great. All right. Where can we find you on social media?
I'm at the Lili Thomas on Instagram. And yeah, I'm kind of like a one social. I've got the mind space for one social media platform.
Me too, which is a problem because I have many, many more. Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Threads and TikTok and Facebook, and I'm horrible at all of them. So I'm so sorry.
I know, like I'll open Facebook and I'll have 10 messages from long, family members. I'm like, oh, this is why I keep this. It's to keep in touch with the family. But I'm not good about keeping up with it.
No, I'm not good at keeping up with the Kardashians or Facebook. Either way. So wherever you're listening now, leave a rating and a review of the podcast. Find me online. Find Lili online. Thanks to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. And Lili, thank you for chatting again. I always love talking to you.
So good to talk to you too.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.